Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Today we are talking with Brandon Slagle. He is the director of a new action thriller called Affinity, which is now available to stream on all VOD platforms. Brandon, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Hi there, and thank you very much for rescheduling. I'm holding this ghost up like it's a beer, but yeah,
Oh,
it's good to be here.
Mountain Dew.
Oh, fantastic.
Cheers. Before we set the film up for people, what is the premise of Affinity?
So Affinity is told from the point of view of Marko Zaror from John Wick 4, Fight or Flight, Undisputed Three's character as he um, is going through the stress of losing his brother while they were both deployed. And he eventually ends up wandering through his sort of self-destructive path into a science fiction movie without giving too much away. Not a movie like in a meta sort of way, but he uncovers something sort of nefarious going on just outside of Bangkok.
When you first read the script, what was it about this story that attracted you to the project and made you want to be a part of it?
Obviously the action, I think at the time when I first spoke to Marco, John Wick hadn't come out yet, but it was impending, and I knew him from Undisputed and Redeemer. It was a great opportunity to, for one thing, like even though I've shot in Bangkok before, it's usually like one movie I did was supposed to be in Louisiana, but we shot it in Bangkok. So this was a great opportunity to actually show Bangkok for what it is and show like the metropolis side of it that's very Blade Runnery, but also show the alleys and the nightlife and just the how people live. So that was very appealing to me, and also just the kind of dealing with, without giving too much away, um, how people deal with their identity, and also kicking ass. That was, of course, a draw. Was ass kicking.
So we mentioned Marco Zaror. He's the star. He plays Bruno. He came up with the story. He's one of the writers. He's one of the producers, and he's also the
Yep.
fight director. Uh,
Yep.
Talk about working with him, excluding the fight part. We're going to get to the fight
Yeah.
in a moment, but just talk to me about him as an actor. What did you enjoy working with him on, and what qualities does he possess as an actor that made him right for the role of Bruno?
So, for comparison's sake, all the positions he had, it's very similar to what Van Damme did in Kickboxer back in the day. Like that, he co-wrote the story, he was a producer, and he supervised the choreography and everything, which is exactly what Marco did with this. Marco had had this story for, I think, by the time I spoke to him for the first time, I think 7 years. It was something that he'd been developing for a while, amongst other projects that he has. He loves science fiction, but also he's someone who, as an actor, doesn't want to just be like a glorified stuntman who has a lead role. He wants to grow. He wants to be a proper actor who can also do what he does on camera. Scott Adkins is very similar. Michael Jai White's very similar. Where they could totally carry like a drama now on their own and not necessarily fight the entire time. Of course, we want to see the fighting, but they want to constantly improve and not just be like an image or a physical presence, but be a human. Something I love about him and these other guys is it's not like how you hear about the contracts for Fast and the Furious and how people, the some of the leads won't lose a fight or they can't get hit or whatever. None of these guys do that. They want to actually give a good performance and a relatable performance, and be vulnerable, be human. I think that makes the action scenes better if you're invested in that way.
So let's talk about the fight scenes. He's the fight director. There's some
Yeah,
amazing martial arts sequences in the movie.
yeah,
Since he's doing the fights and he's choreographing the fights,
yeah.
how does that affect you as a director? Like, are you participating at all in that, or is he
Yeah.
doing all the work? And when it comes to the fights, that you get to sit back
Oh,
and like, oh, look at me, look at my fight scenes in my.
look, I'm so cool. No, no. Well, we totally work together the entire time before once we so we had Zoom meetings for like 7 or 8 months. Even when he was working on Killer's Game, we would make sure to at least talk for an hour every day. It was a really good like producer director collaboration. And then once we were in Thailand, we were using Tony Jaa's stunt team, who was recommended by our DP Nico. And we worked side by side with them. So really, we were almost like one unit that, I would make sure the camera's style was what I like. I would make sure that the actors hit their beats and gave these moments, and we would integrate, the choreography with this together, so that it flows a certain way and that it has a certain feel and it's consistent. So really, I mean, think that a lot of people I think forget that a director or a writer or a producer are just like one entity on a movie, when really it's a collaboration between a couple hundred, sometimes a couple thousand people, and everyone is equally as important.
One of the other people who stars in the film is Louis Mandylor, who plays Joe. You've worked with Louis a lot over the
Yep.
years. You've written scripts that he's directed. He's starred in other movies that you've directed. Talk
Yeah.
about him, how you met, what's the relationship like, and obviously you guys enjoy working together because you've done this so
Yeah.
much. Talk about that relationship.
So I didn't realize until one of the other things that I did in Bangkok how long he and I have actually known each other, um, which is almost 20 years, which doesn't sound like a lot of time. But then when you think about life, that becomes a long time, and how long you normally like keep a relationship with anyone except for like a family member or a spouse. And even then, um, like I didn't realize at the time I'd known Lewis longer than my wife at the time. Um, I guess I don't know what that says. Um, anyway, yeah, we first spoke, I think 19 years ago, when I was a struggling actor in New York City, and I was first trying to think about writing things for myself or directing or what have you. And a mutual friend, an editor named Russell White, who I knew from working with the director Will Kaufman, who also cut Lewis's movie The Sensei and some other stuff, put us together, and we just had a great conversation. That movie never happened, but we always stayed in touch and just became better and better friends over the years. And finally, we were in a spot where both of us could do a number of things together. And I would, like the things that I wrote for him, he requested that I write for him. And then I try to get him on things because he's always good to have, because I trust him as a person and a performer, and I can, we can come up with little things that we don't tell the other actors to kind of put in the scene and get certain reactions and stuff out of. There's luckily Marko responded to these things wonderfully. But yeah, I just, if you can work with one of your closest friends and it be a positive attribute in your movie without it being like, ah, this guy again, why not?
Uh, I'm wondering what the most challenging part of making Affinity was. Was there a challenging day, a challenging scene? And then
Yeah.
on the opposite end of the spectrum, what was something you thought was going to be a challenge going in and ended up being a pleasant surprise? Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're like, oh, this was a great day. I didn't expect it to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. So the actual shoot of Affinity, like there's business stuff and behind the scenes stuff where, producers are always putting out fires and stuff like that. The actual shoot was one of my most enjoyable movie or work experiences ever. We every day everyone brought something new. Everyone was giddy, happy. Even when one of us would get sick, like we'd pick up the other one, or everyone was still in it. Um, I thought that one thing that I really wanted to push in this, and it kind of answers both questions, is I didn't want it just to be like soulless. I didn't want the characters just to be like, what do people say a lot these days? NPCs in a video game, where they're just sort of autonomously fighting. So I was really, especially the quieter scenes in this, I pushed really hard, Marko, Jane, who plays Athena, everyone to like get outside your comfort zone, like make yourself feel uncomfortable in a way that that doesn't look like a bad performance, but works, that kind of disarms you, where you don't think about Marko Zaror, who, kicked Keanu Reeves downstairs, but you think of him as a relatable person who happens to be this badass. So, sometimes we have to do, I would make them do like 6 or 7 takes, which doesn't sound a lot when you hear like how David Fincher does 70. But when you're trying to shoot an action movie in 22, 23 days that has these really elaborate scenes, sometimes people forget to focus on the quieter moments. Luckily, I had cast and crew that accommodated all of that.
Let's talk about Thailand. You mentioned that you shot the movie in Thailand. You kind of touched
Yeah.
on this briefly earlier. Talk to me about shooting there.
Yeah.
What does that location do for the film in terms of enhancing it?
Mhm.
What are moments in the film that are authentically this is authentically Thailand that we couldn't have
Yeah.
done if it was shot somewhere else?
That's a good one. No one's really asked me like that version of that question before. I mean, first off, the crews in Thailand are great. Even going back to the first thing I did there, um, people don't have no one really has an ego, and everyone's really like wants to make sure that they do a good job. So the craftsmanship of say costumes, the prop people, everyone is really just like second to none. And the people are so welcoming that even when you're not shooting and you're stressed out, you're still glad to be there. Something I really liked about this one especially is kind of goes back to what I said about what I saw in the script is there was uh, there there were a lot of ways just to show very like mundane Thailand. Like so let's say something shot in LA and you constantly see Hollywood and the Hollywood sign and the US Bank building downtown that's like in every movie from the last 25 years that was done in LA. But scenes like when we're with Bruno at his home that's on a river, there's millions of people that live like that. That's the real Thailand when you step outside of the metropolitan areas. And like a lot of the extras and stuff were the people that were actually there. There's a time where Lewis and Marco's character go to a market, and there's women checking Lewis out, as they do because of Greek wedding. Um, so that could be a side story, but I've seen people like we're not worthy to Lewis over the years. Um, Everyone there is just authentic. That's how it was. And I love showing that because it's not something that you see in like every movie or, like Atlanta is starting to kind of become overshot or, obviously LA, you recognize the same locations over and over from so many movies.
I'm curious, what were films that inspired you growing up? And is there one or two or three films or performances or directors uh,
Yeah.
that you came across that influenced you and made you say, you know what, this is a career path I want to take?
Easily John Woo. Obviously, I as a kid who had I split time between my mom in New York City and my dad in the South. Anytime I was with my mom, I would go down to the East Village and find. I didn't know at the time this was illegal, but I'd find these like bootlegged VHS tapes of John Woo's Hong Kong movies before he came to America. They were always in like a black clamshell case, like very like kind of suspicious looking. But I remember at one point I bought like The Killer, Better Tomorrow 1 and 2, and maybe Once a Thief, and like watching those probably is one of the like five biggest like life-changing career path experiences I've ever had. But at the time, how do you do it? It seems so unattainable. And there's not really, especially back then, before social media and the internet was widespread, there's not really like a how-to book of how to do things. So it's like, okay, I want to do this, but how? So I guess it was maybe a year after that, El Mariachi came out. And the story of how Robert Rodriguez, was basically a lab rat to raise money and how the production budget was just 7 grand. Obviously, that more money was put into it to master it later on, but that was the first time that I knew um, it was possible to actually make something, that it was attainable, and you didn't have to like figure out that mysterious path to Hollywood that is still kind of mysterious even with information the way it is today. Um, Other than that, like I loved Friday the 13th growing up. I obviously Star Wars because that was my generation. Bruce Lee movies, any random strange kung fu movie I could find from the 70s. And Ridley Scott and Tony Scott were probably about as impactful as John Woo to me as well.
Piggybacking off that last question, is there anything, any film or performance or a director
Yeah.
that you consciously were aware of when you were making Affinity that you said, I'm going to take this, or this is going to inspire this scene, or this is going to inspire this moment? Do you have any, recall any
So not
specific?
so much like specifics. Like this one and some of the more recent ones, there's sort of like there's a style I've been trying to cultivate over the years, and each one I add to that or I take things away that I don't think work. But this one was actually, and Marko would probably agree. This one was actually very anime influenced, which I'm not really an anime like geek per se. Marko kind of is. Don't tell anyone. Um, but like he was really into the Attack on Titan movies and would constantly send me like music from it for inspiration. Akira, Vampire Hunter D, and Ghost in the Shell were like big ones for me. I don't really know much beyond those, but like there's probably a lot of Akira in this and everything, whether it's obvious or not.
I'm curious, looking at your filmography, it seems that no matter what film you're making, whether it's an action film, a thriller, etc., there's always a
Yeah.
tinge of sci-fi in there or a tinge of
Yeah.
horror in there. We won't spoil how you've hinted that there's a sci-fi element to Affinity.
Yeah.
We won't mention how, but I've noticed that seems to be a theme in your movies, is that there's a horror element or a sci-fi element, even if the film on the surface is an action movie, for example.
Yeah. So
Talk
that's
about that choice, and is that something you
yeah.
steer
You
towards?
can also kind of flip that and say that some things that I did that were more horror oriented had a lot of action in them. With some of them, I won't say which titles that may or may not have been a good idea tonally, but whatever, we learn and hopefully we do more movies as we go and get better. But yeah, I like adding these elements just because it's stuff that unless it's just weird, like in this movie, you couldn't have like super bad humor out of nowhere because it would just feel so totally off. It wouldn't feel organic. But if something feels like a natural progression or that it can be paired together with action, why not have those elements? Because with action and with fighting and stuff, there should be an element of fear or there should be something ominous. In this movie, a lot of the and actually something Marko really liked about my background was that there's a lot of uneasiness with him getting to know this woman who has like no past and a lot of quiet calm things that hopefully the audience watch looks at as kind of unnerving. So to me it just makes sense. A dream project would be like a Minority Report with the martial arts of the raid. So maybe that's what I'm building to. I don't know.
I was
Actually, I
gonna,
do know. Yeah.
I was
So if
just gonna
anyone's
ask you.
looking,
I was just gonna ask you. Affinity's out now. People can watch it. They watch it. They like it. They want to know what's coming next. What do you have anything coming up that you can talk
yeah.
about?
So about 9, 10 months ago, I shot a movie first time in years in LA. So it was it was weird to unlearn like what I'm used to, how I'm used to going about things in Asia. That is sort of like a Fifth Element, but rated R. So it's more of a straight like Guardians of the Galaxy style sci-fi movie. I've There's a handful of things I've written that should be out soon. There's one that was a really good experience with I wrote with Scout Taylor Compton and Daniel Harris, who most people know from the Halloween movies, a passion project of Scouts that they directed together called Last Chance Motel. That should be a lot of fun. I've seen some stuff for it, and it's like it just hits that like nice sweet spot where it's nostalgic but contemporary at the same time, and just like over the top and ridiculous and fun. There's no other way to say it. Um, I'm trying to do more stuff with Marko. Sometimes sometimes these movies, they go super slow until they go fast. So hopefully soon there'll be a few like nuggets of information out there, and maybe another shooting in Europe, but we'll see.
Awesome. We're almost out of time. Before we wrap up, I'll end the conversation with this final question. What do you hope audiences take away with them when they watch Affinity?
Kind of with every movie, I just hope that, someone has an I don't hope that someone has a bad day at work, but should they have a bad day at work, I hope that they can come home and a movie like Affinity, or let's say Lewis's movie Prisoner of War, Diablo with Scott and Marko. I hope they can watch these movies and forget about how bad the day was and just carry on.
Well, the film is called Affinity. It's now available to stream everywhere on all VOD platforms. Brendan, thanks so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.
Thank you very much.
Getting sick and tired of this, Bruno. Maybe you could find a girl. Become a man.
I'm Bruno. And you?
I don't know. I remember something. I escaped.
Escaped?
They took her.
Who do you work for? No one. I have to find her.
I know where to start.
Let's go get her.
Fitch, you copy?
I'm here. What's up?
You're not gonna believe what I'm seeing right now.